Imagine standing in the middle of a forest. The wind rustles through the leaves, carrying the smell of pine and damp earth. Somewhere far away, you hear the faint sound of a drumbeat, deep, rhythmic, steady. It feels ancient, older than the trees, older than the ground beneath your feet. That's where our story begins, with the first people of North America. Long before Europeans arrived, before there was a United States, before there were cities or railroads or borders, entire nations thrived here. These weren't just small, scattered bands of hunters. They were complex societies with languages, laws, art, and traditions that have been passed down for thousands of years. But here's the thing, we still don't fully know where some of these tribes came from or how far back their roots go. And the more archaeologists dig, the more questions they uncover. The first footprints, most historians agree that the ancestors of today's Native Americans came to North America from Asia, crossing a land bridge called Bering around 15,000 to 20,000 years ago, maybe even earlier. But here's where it gets fascinating. Some archaeological sites, like Buttermilk Creek Complex in Texas, suggest people were here more than 20,000 years ago. Others, like the Bluefish Caves in Canada, hint at a presence nearly 24,000 years old. If that's true, these early arrivals weren't just wandering hunters, they were the founders of civilizations, the tribes that shaped a continent. When we talk about the oldest tribes, we're really talking about nations whose histories reach deep into prehistory. Here are just a few whose legacies still shape America today. The Hopi, often called the Peaceful People. The Hopi have lived in what is now Arizona for more than 2,000 years. Their villages are some of the oldest continuously inhabited settlements in North America. Their oral traditions claim their ancestors emerged from the underworld and were guided to their homeland, whose story is spiritual as it is historical. The Zuni, close neighbors to the Hopi. The Zuni people speak a language unrelated to any other in the world. Linguists and geneticists are still trying to figure out where it came from and how long they have been in the Southwest. The Iroquois Confederacy, not a single tribe, but a powerful alliance of Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, and later, Tuscarora nations. They had a system of government that many historians believe influenced the U.S. Constitution. Imagine America's democracy may have roots in native governance. The Cherokee, known for their adaptability. The Cherokee had a written language, developed by Sequoyah in the early 1800s, and a legal system that rivaled those of European settlers. But their history goes back long before that too. Mound-building cultures that thrived in the Southeast for millennia. The mysterious mound builders of the great, unsolved mysteries of North America, is the story of the mound builders, ancient peoples who constructed massive earthen structures long before Columbus. At places like Cahokia in Illinois, archaeologists have uncovered entire cities, complete with plazas, ceremonial centers, and towering mounds. At its height, Cahokia may have had a population of 20,000, bigger than London at the same time. Who were they? Were they the ancestors of today's tribes? The Cherokee say yes. Others believe these were separate, vanished cultures. We still don't know what caused their decline. But we do know that the knowledge of farming, astronomy, and city planning they developed shaped the lives of tribes who came after. Secrets hidden in oral tradition, unlike European history, which was often written down. Native American history was preserved through storytelling. Each story was more than entertainment. It was a way of passing on laws, morals, and knowledge about the natural world. But here's the twist, many of these stories hint at events we can't fully explain: floods, fires, migrations, and even encounters with star people from the sky. Some anthropologists believe these tales may preserve memories of real events, like the end of the Ice Age or ancient astronomical phenomena. What if these stories hold clues to the earliest history of humanity on this continent? Clues we haven't fully deciphered yet. A legacy under threat for centuries. Colonization tried to erase native culture, banning languages, forcing children into boarding schools, and relocating entire nations. Yet, against all odds, many tribes have preserved their identities. Today, the oldest Native American tribes are not just a part of history, they are living nations. They continue to fight for land rights, language preservation, and recognition of sacred sites. Their resilience is itself part of their legacy, the mystery that pulls us in when we ask what are the oldest tribes. We're not just asking about anthropology or dates on a timeline. We're asking about the first chapters of America's story, chapters that were almost lost but are still being pieced together by scientists, elders, and storytellers. And we've only scratched the surface. In the next chapter, we'll dive deeper into the mysteries of their spiritual practices, their connection to the land, and the surprising ways their knowledge is shaping modern science and medicine. Asterisk. The world between worlds. For many tribes, the physical world was only one layer of existence. The Hopi, for example, believe that this is the fourth world, and that humanity has lived through three worlds before each destroyed because people fell out of balance with nature. According to Hopi elders, we are near the end of this world too, unless we change our ways. Their prophecies talk about a time when the spider's web would cover the earth. Many interpret this as the internet, and when the world would shake and split. Are these just symbolic warnings, or do they hold memories of real cataclysms, passed down through oral tradition for thousands of years? Ceremonies that echo through time. One of the most fascinating things about the oldest tribes is how their rituals connect them to their ancestors. Take the sun dance, practiced by several Plains tribes. Dancers fast, pray, and pierce their skin, offering pain as a form of renewal for the world. Outsiders often misunderstood these ceremonies as barbaric, but for the Lakota, Cheyenne, and others, this was about maintaining the cosmic balance, ensuring that the bison would return, the rains would come, and the people would survive another year. And then there are vision quests, solitary journeys into the wilderness where young men and women fasted, seeking dreams or visions that would guide their lives. These experiences often brought them face to face with spirit animals, ancestors, or even beings from the sky. Anthropologists have compared these rituals to the ancient mystery schools of Egypt and Greece, a form of initiation that shaped a person's entire destiny. The star people, here's where things get truly mysterious. Across the continent, many tribes have legends of visitors from the stars. The Dakota called them Wikipioid star people. The Zuni speak of ancestors coming from the sky, and the Hopi say they were taught by beings called Kachinas who descended from the heavens. Skeptics see these as metaphors. Others, including some researchers, wonder if they could be cultural memories of astronomical events or even contact with something beyond Earth. Consider this. Many ancient structures built by these early cultures are aligned with celestial events. Chaco Canyon, in New Mexico, has walls aligned with the solstices and equinoxes. The Bighorn Medicine Wheel, high in the mountains of Wyoming, is laid out like a giant star map. These were not coincidences, they were deliberate, showing that the sky played a central role in their lives. Sacred plants and ancient science. Seth. Oldest tribes were also skilled scientists, though they never used the word science. They understood how to cultivate corn, beans, and squash in a way that replenished the soil. They knew hundreds of medicinal plants and how to use them. Some of these remedies, like willow bark, which contains the active ingredient in aspirin, are still used in modern medicine. Some ceremonies use psychoactive plants like peyote or tobacco to open what they called the doorways of the mind. These were not for recreation. They were for healing, problem solving, and seeking visions. Modern neuroscience has begun to study these rituals and finds that they may actually rewire the brain, reducing trauma and promoting emotional healing. In other words, the oldest tribes may have been practicing a form of psychological therapy thousands of years before Freud. Hidden warnings that all of their wisdom is comforting. Some oral traditions carry warnings that seem eerily relevant today. The Iroquois speak of the seventh generation, a prophecy that every decision we make should consider its impact 7 generations into the future. Imagine if our governments operated that way. No short-term thinking, only long-term stewardship. Other stories speak of floods, fires, and a great cleansing of the earth. To the elders, these are not distant myths, they are cycles that repeat. The battle for memory. Here's the part most people don't like to talk about. For centuries, these spiritual traditions were attacked, suppressed, even outlawed. In the late 19th century, the US government banned ceremonies like the sun dance and imprisoned medicine men. Children were taken to boarding schools where they were beaten for speaking their language or practicing their culture. Some ceremonies went underground. Others were nearly lost. Only in the late 20th century did the US pass the American Indian Religious Freedom Act, allowing Native Americans to openly practice their traditions again. That means some of the wisdom we are only now beginning to rediscover was nearly erased from history. The mystery still alive despite everything: war, colonization, forced assimilation. These traditions are still alive. Elders still tell the old stories. Young people are relearning their languages, bringing back dances and ceremonies that haven't been seen in generations. And perhaps most importantly, non-native scientists, historians, and everyday people are starting to really listen to what these tribes have to say about the earth, the sky, and our place in the universe. The languages coming back to life. Languages are more than words. They carry worldviews. They shape how people think, how they relate to time, to the land, to each other. A century ago, it seemed certain that many native languages would disappear. Boarding schools punished children for speaking them, and entire generations grew up without hearing the words of their ancestors. But today, there's a revolution happening. Tribes are launching language immersion schools where kids learn to speak Cherokee, Mohawk, Hopi, and dozens of other tongues, not as museum pieces, but as living languages. The Cherokee Nation has created an entire school system where children learn math and science in Cherokee. The Wampanoag people of Massachusetts brought their language back after it had been silent for over 100 years. Using old documents and oral history, they reconstructed it, and now children are once again growing up fluent. Each word spoken is a victory, proof that the oldest voices on this land are not gone. Protecting sacred place. Another battle is over land, and it's not just about property lines. For the oldest tribes, land is not something you owned, it's something you are part of. Across the U.S., Native activists are fighting to protect sacred mountains, rivers, and burial sites from mining, pipelines, and development. One of the most famous recent examples is Standing Rock, where thousands gathered to protest an oil pipeline they said would threaten their water supply and desecrate sacred ground. These fights are not just political. They are spiritual, about protecting the balance that their ancestors taught them was necessary for the survival of all life. Ancient knowledge. Modern science. What's remarkable is how much of the ancient wisdom of these tribes is now being confirmed by modern science. Controlled burns. Tribes practice small, regular fires to prevent devastating wildfires. Today, forestry experts are reintroducing these methods to save millions of acres from destruction. Three Sisters agriculture. Corn, beans, and squash were grown together in a way that created a natural ecosystem, enriching the soil without chemicals. Agricultural scientists now promote this as a model of sustainable farming. Holistic medicine. Healers use plants, sweat lodges, and ceremony to treat illness. Many of these methods are now studied as complementary therapies for physical and mental health. The oldest tribes weren't primitive, they were sophisticated ecologists, astronomers, and philosophers, with knowledge that the modern world is only starting to appreciate. New generations. New stories. Perhaps the most inspiring part of this story is the new generation of Native artists, writers, and leaders who are sharing their culture with the world in fresh ways. Authors like Louise Erdrich and Joy Harjo, the first Native American U.S. Poet Laureate, bring Native history and myth into modern literature. Filmmakers and YouTubers are telling stories from their communities, reaching millions who might never have learned this history in school. Scientists, lawyers, and politicians from tribal nations are using both traditional knowledge and modern tools to fight for their people's future. Their message is clear: we are still here. The moral of the story. So what do the oldest tribes teach us? They teach us that survival is possible even through centuries of invasion, epidemic, and attempted erasure. They teach us that memory can live in the land, in the stars, in the songs passed from grandmother to child. And they teach us that the choices we make today will echo for generations, and just as theirs have echoed for thousands of years. When we look at the Hopi Mesas, the Zuni Pueblos, the Iroquois longhouses, we are not just looking back in time. We are looking at endurance, at identity, at a deep kind of wisdom that doesn't just tell us who they were, it tells us who we might still become. A final thought: next time you walk through a forest, or watch the sunset, or feel the wind on your face, remember, there were people here long before us who believed that every tree, every stone, every river had a spirit, and that humans were part of that web, not above it. Maybe that's the lesson the oldest Native American tribes have been trying to teach us all along, that to have a future, we must learn to live in balance with the world and with each other.